recorded.
Is now.
All right, Liz, you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Brittany, I think you're the only other one muted. Everyone else is muted. You can unmute yourself at any point in time.
I would love to see cameras on.
You've been hanging around Ben too long.
I was gonna say
Right?
you're pulling a Ben.
I am. Well, I get it. It's a little soul crushing when you just see a sea of names and not faces.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's on this side of things. It's like, well, I'm on camera.
Right?
I see enough of myself every
Unless
time.
you're naked.
I go to the mirror. I get to see me. I don't want to see me.
Right? And then did we figure out the live streaming? Not yet?
We're working on it.
Okay.
And Jessica, if you will be on camera while getting your hair done, you will be my hero.
Right?
Believe it or not, we were on a yes. Hey, believe it or not, we were on a group call a week ago and that exact scenario was playing out. And I'm like,
Yeah, it was.
She can do it. We can do it.
Right?
So Liz,
So Drew.
what brings us here today?
Well, we finally are collaborating on what I've been doing since you put your foot in my rear about my business. So yeah. Oh, can I admit people from the waiting room, or is it okay? Brittany's doing it. Oh, we got people in the waiting room. Okay. Anyway, do you want me to just start with how this?
Yeah, how long? So take us back to when did you and I meet? I don't remember what year exactly that was. When did you and I meet? How long we known each other? What's been that journey?
It was the very end of 2011. I had taken Bold, I think for the third time, maybe fourth. No, it was third time, I think, third or fourth time. And it was basically like time to get a real coach. And I got connected with you and we'd been coaching for a while. And I remember going over the numbers of 2013, you hit me with a big reality stick. That based on the number of people I had in my database and the model from the MREA about if you have this many people, you know, the 12-2 conversion, blah, 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 I should have closed double what I closed without ever having to cold call. And back then I was cold calling and not enjoying that.
I was gonna say I recall you were having so much fun, and it was I've never been a dentist. I now understand what it would like to be one, though, with the whole pulling teeth, whole pulling teeth idea. And I think I recall, one conversation we had, it was like, well, I don't want to call for sale by owners. Well, how the heck did we ever get on for sale by owners anyway?
I just like to argue.
I don't make the rules. You're the one calling them.
Right. So yes, and I've always been a big believer in there's always, when there's a will, there's a way, and you can make things fun that might not be fun. So anyway, I had gone to lunch with a colleague in another area, close by, but not same exact area. And he wanted to twist my ear about my farming, my online farming strategy. So I gave him the formula. And he's like, oh, by the way, I've got this program I'm doing. And he told me about it. And my brain was like, it was way too complicated, way too expensive. I'm like, whatever, dude. Then the very next day was our coaching call when you told me that I wasn't doing what I should be with my database. And I was like, no, I'm doing a 33 touch. And I said, I'm sending out a mailer every month, an email every month, a football schedule, a Christmas card, a Mother's Day card. And you're like, what about the phone calls?
Generic.
Yeah. You're like, what about the phone calls? I'm like, the what? And so I wasn't making the phone calls because in all honesty, I've never really had a problem calling a client that closed a few months ago, like a buyer, like, hey, how's the house? Did you ever end up doing that thing with the kitchen? Or what did you find out about putting in a pool or whatever their thing was? But I really struggled, and I still kind of do, except for with this program, with calling like the seller whose investment property I sold 3 years ago. Like, hey, got another house for me to sell? So I needed an excuse to call people, and you calling me out on that made me call my friend back and said, okay, I didn't listen to a word you said yesterday. So now I'd like to take you to lunch and listen. And I took notes, and I figured out a way to scale it down to be less complicated than his and way less expensive than his. So when I started it, I was spending $300 a month on Vulcan 7 so I could cold call. And I just took that 300 a month and put it into this program. And if you guys sign up for the program, we can explain the budget and how it's totally scalable. Even if you don't have 300 a month, if you have 100 a month, you can still make this work.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because at the time, going backwards, it wasn't like we had this flush budget, and
Oh no.
this was a big deal of how do we take something from over here and move it over here.
Yeah, I was living commission check to commission check.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone really hear that is I don't care if you have $50 to your name, 500 or 500,000. How you perk your sphere and how you get your SOI engaged can be something anybody can do. And yet, when she was talking about the sports schedules and the magnets and the mailers and the things that so many real estate agents tend to do, here's what we know. I've yet to see a piece of mail, a piece of marketing, a schedule, a sports schedule that says, here's the deal. The only reason you're receiving this is because you're supposed to do interpretive dance and understand, send me referrals. We have this roundabout kind of way of sending marketing and trusting that they're going to be intuitive enough to say, oh, I am receiving this because I'm supposed to go out of my way and think about this person and send them business and send them referrals and introduce them to my relationships.
Exactly.
So keep your eye out. Start looking at your own marketing. Does it say, yo, you're getting this to send, because you're supposed to send me referrals?
Right. Well, there's a lot, and I talk about this a lot in the book and in the program that we're about to do, and just in life, is a lot of people would refer us if they knew how, or if they knew that was the expectation. So even in and I'll share it with you guys in the program, my intro letter, because I had been in business 10 years when I started my program in 2014, I came from a place of apology. And one of the things I wrote in the email and in the letter is, I've done a terrible job of staying in touch with you and thanking you for your continued business and referrals. And I get this question a lot. Do you send that letter to somebody who's never sent you a referral? And I say, damn Skippy, I do, because I want them to know that everyone else is sending me all these referrals and they're failing me in a very passive aggressive subliminal kind of way.
Which you would never do. And then you go off and you do something that very few people have ever done. You publish a book around your success and how you went and doubled. Basically, you wanted to prove to yourself, could I run my entire business without ever cold calling, without ever picking up or ever really speaking to someone who wasn't a relationship or introduced from a relationship?
Pretty much.
How many of you would you love to have a business that says, I never have to talk to a stranger again. The only stranger I'm going to talk to is somebody that was introduced by somebody I know?
Yep.
That's the idea and the concept behind building a business where you're perking your sphere and you're generating referrals.
Yeah. Yeah. Because some of the people here in the audience know me and know that I don't cold call. I'm not opposed to it. I just, especially in the market we've just had, there's not anybody to call. There's no expireds or cancels or, real FISBOs or whatever. So I really had to switch gears anyway and get back in touch with my database. And those are the best pieces of business. Their referrals are the best, past clients, and people you know.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. When you're getting really clear on what business you're in, and we are in a referral-based business, we're in a relationship-based business. Most people, when I ask that question, what business are you in? I inevitably hear the word relationship business, which I kind of sit back and say, I would agree with you. And if that were truly the business we were in, we suck at it. For the most part, unless you have a referral reward program and an ongoing relationship, if we were judged on the merit alone of how well you maintain relationships, grow relationships, and build relationships, we would get a F as an industry and as a whole.
Yeah.
What do we do about that? So I'm gonna take you
Well,
through the presentation, then we'll circle back around. Sound good?
Yep.
So Liz, chime in at any point along this journey, which I know you're going to do anyway.
And I'm like, why are you giving me permission? You're so silly.
All right, let's see if I get it right. Okay, so some of the things we're going to talk about today and walk away with some specific pieces is change the way you think about referrals, things the way you change the way you think about people and relationships in general, how to rapidly expand your network with quality people, the systems to stay in touch. We're not going to give too much. And I trust at this point, everyone has a copy. In the rapidly changing marketplace that we're in today, now is the perfect time to engage in Perk Your Sphere. And if you have people in your office, your brokerage, your team, agents, if you have a team, anyone that you know and you care about, and you see their business and it isn't what it should be, get them a copy of Perk Your Sphere and invite them to be part of this. The systems to stay in touch and the words that work to build these long-standing relationships. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to ask you that question again. What business are you in? What business do you believe you're in? This is Ray Kroc, Michael Keaton playing Ray Kroc in the movie The Founder. Love this clip because it reinvented McDonald's to the way it still stands today.
So to summarize, you have a minuscule revenue stream, no cash reserves, and an albatross of a contract that requires you to go through a slow approval process to enact changes, if they're approved at all, which they never are. Am I missing anything?
About sums up.
Tell me about the land.
The
The land, the buildings, how that whole aspect of it works.
Oh, pretty simple, really. Franchisee finds a piece of land he likes, gets a lease usually 20 years, takes our construction loan, goes on the building, and off he goes.
So the operator selects the site.
Yeah,
He picks the property.
right.
You provide the training, the system, the operational know-how, and he's responsible for the rest.
Is there a problem?
A big one. You don't seem to realize what business you're in. You're not in the burger business. You're in the real estate business.
So the interesting part about that clip is that reinvented what is known still most commonly referred to as, it's a hamburger place. McDonald's owns more real estate today than the Catholic Church. Let's do a little history lesson, whichever one of you know this. Which one's been out longer? I think the Catholic Church has a few hundred years of development and globalization versus McDonald's, a hamburger franchise. And today, McDonald's owns more real estate than the Catholic Church. Why? Because they got really clear of what business they're truly in. Not what they serve, not what they offer, not who their customer is, what business they're in. What business are you truly in? So one of my partners, Ben Kinney, believes we are in the business of home ownership. We could say I'm in the relationship business. But as I said earlier, if we were judged on that merit alone, we'd probably get an F, because most real estate agents don't maintain the relationship. They don't build it, they don't enhance it, and they don't grow relationships over time. You will when you redefine what relationship you're in. Imagine if you believed and you reinvented yourself to believe you're in the business of home ownership. If that's the case, then you're responsible for the day that they buy the home till the day that they sell the home and everything in between. You'd be responsible for it. If they don't own a home, then they're a future home buyer. If they own a home, they're a future home seller. If we're in the business of home ownership, everything related to a house would warrant or put things in that relationship in our purview. Key is, are you extracting as much business from the people that you know as you should? We already know the answer to that. If you look at your database and you look at the relationships that you have and the total number of people, and I mean, I'm talking about go through your phone. You ask an average real estate agent or even a great real estate agent, hey, how many people you know? How many people do you know really, really close? They'll give you a small number. I know about 200 people. No, you don't. I get on your social media and you have like 10,000. I get on your Instagram, you know, like 20,000. You have all of these followers, but I only know a couple people. What you're really saying is I only have a couple people that I feel comfortable with making the conversation about me. What if we made it about them, their home, and the relationship itself? What would your business look like if you doubled or tripled the amount of referrals you generate? Well, let's get into the dynamics. What stops us from generating, receiving, having the conversations with people? Come on, lay it on. There's nothing at this point I can think of I haven't heard, Liz hadn't heard, is what stops us from calling them, seeing them, communicating with them, staying in touch, social media, messaging them, sending smoke signals. How do we create more conversations or connections with people that we have relationships with?
I got to chime in. One of the great things about adopting this program and taking this upcoming class will be changing the mindset of from all of this list to coming from contribution, whether it's the contribution of you are the best real estate agent to serve them with their either home buying needs or home selling needs, or even just with the program of the book I wrote, Perking Your Sphere, about the items of value that we give away or the events we put on, smaller events, nothing too big and crazy. But it's all of it is all coming from contribution, which never feels yucky.
If you own a home, you know you can't walk from one side of the house to the other without either noticing something that needs to be fixed, removed, changed, replaced, renovated. And the key is, if we've ever sold a person a house, we either A, sold them the perfect house where nothing ever goes wrong, which we know doesn't exist, or they end up going out and they go to Facebook, they go to Google, they get reviews. So what say you? What stops you personally? What goes through your thoughts, your mind when it comes to connecting with the people that you have relationships with? Common one is I'm bugging them. I don't like when people call me. What tends to happen is you don't like people you don't know calling you. You're not that person. You're somebody that actually knows them. You're in an entirely different realm. They'd call me if they knew someone who had a real estate need, asking for business. That's my favorite one. Asking for business or a referral feels the equivalent of borrowing money. What service are you offering? Afraid of what they may think. Anyone want to chime in? What typically goes through your mind? What's the worst thing you can come up with, that internal dialogue when you see this 200-pound anvil picking it up and having a conversation?
I think maybe just not good that you actually haven't stayed in touch with them in a really long time.
So embarrassment.
Embarrassment, yeah.
Yep. That was my biggest struggle, which when launching Perk Your Sphere with my MVP program, it gave me a great excuse to call and say, hey, I've been a total schmuck and not stayed in touch. And I've made a commitment to myself and to my clients like you that I am going to do better and make it my point of finding items of value and events that you and your family might enjoy.
And let me just add this. Who is the only one that actually has a stopwatch on the last time you connected with him? See, I'm going to get over away for a minute. You know, we may have this little thing called ego at times. And our ego says from the moment they closed on their house, they've turned on their watch. They've turned on the stopwatch, and now they are tracking how long is it going to be before you call me again. If you call that person, how many of you have ever had a relationship where you pick it up exactly where you left off? Anyone besides me? No time has passed. You go to your 20, or I'm going to date myself, soon to be 30-year reunion. It's like, hey, what's going on? Not one time at the last reunion I went to did someone say, you haven't called me in 20 years. Not once. Because we're living our lives not keeping track of when was the last time another human being connected with us. Well, here's what I know. I know I send a check to my insurance agent every single month for something that's supposed to protect me, and he doesn't have the common courtesy to ever call me. I know I bought property before and I don't hear from that real estate agent. What do we do to break that barrier? And as David Berg said, get out of our own way. When you think of connecting with someone, just ask yourself, what do I make this mean? See, even the most successful people have some fear, doubt, anxiety, issues. It's what they do about those feelings that makes the difference. And once you get that warm hello and greeting on the other side of things, it opens the door. This is an amazing lady with an incredible story that I've followed and watched for years. How many of you know who she is? She should irritate the crap out of you. Since it's Liz's group, I could probably say some harsher words. But this is a person, let's date back and let's look at the history of the real estate agent. Long before Google, long before Amazon, long before the phone, long before the cell phones, and there was a thing called the white pages. There was a thing called the yellow pages. Even before that, you actually, for those that aren't old enough to remember this, you used to be able to go to your phone. There was a cord that connected your phone to a place in your house. And if you hit 0, it actually connected you with a person called this operator. And you would ask the operator for information. Since that was a long drawn out process and half the time they couldn't answer your question or you would hold, you called the real estate agent. Why? Because you knew they knew everyone. They knew the community, they knew the businesses, they knew what was local, they knew where to go, who not to go, who to work with, who not to work with. Well, then Angie Hicks comes along and realizes, you know what? The real estate agent has stopped doing their job. I'm going to start doing the job they're supposed to do. And she started in Columbus, Ohio, going door to door, knocking and building a referral network. Hey, who do you use to manicure your lawn? Who do you use to cut grass? Who do you have as a handyman? Who do you recommend for this? It went from lawn services and handyman services to amass a network of over 1,000 people. I'm going to say that again. She door knocked complete strangers and built a database of 1,000 people. Angie eventually relocated to Indianapolis. When they went public as a company and Angie's List eventually merged with Home Advisor, as a publicly traded company, it was worth $500 million. This is nothing more than a database of referral resources. Who do you know that I can trust that I would use towards blank? That's all she did. We're supposed to be that person in their world. If we're in the business of real estate, the business of home ownership, the business of commercial real estate, the business of farm, land, and everything related to a piece of property and the improvement upon it, then what are we going to do to be better and reinvent ourselves and put this amazing lady with an incredible story out of business? She'll be fine. She has $500 million. It's okay. Let's put her out of business and take back the relationship and the referral resources. Here's what she said in that journey, though. It takes a lot of perseverance. It's the skill set that defined me as an entrepreneur and got me through the toughest times. Times are changing, whereas this is more important now than ever to reinvent yourself and be that key relationship they have that knows everyone in the community. The 5 C's, the keys to succeeding is the ability to press through dark times, persevere, focus, stay optimistic, and find ways to restate the same thing in different ways until it clicks for someone. That's what's really cool about Perk Your Sphere is you find so many unique ways to re-engage the client, to re-engage the customer.
Agreed. And also the way that I wrote the book is there's not a ton of detail in there because I really wanted everybody to make it their own. I feel like that book, it's real thin. It's the foundation. And then each one of you can build whatever style house you want on that foundation, whether it be a Spanish villa or a Victorian or a modern monstrosity, whatever. And if you do sign up for the class, there'll be more, we'll go into depth about different ways to do things. So like, I always get asked, like, give me the list of your top 20 giveaways. I'm like, well, I can, except your database is different than my database, even your location in the country. We might have different people. like, so we'll go over that more, but there are some things that just work.
I mean, you're in Washington. Right now I'm in Florida. Your
Yeah.
giveaway might be an umbrella. My giveaway might be sunscreen. Very, very
Exactly.
different.
Yes. Yeah. Or like, we all, if our giveaways include any sort of wine or alcohol, it's a hit. But if you're in Salt Lake City or somewhere with a large population of non-alcoholics, that might not go over real well. Oh, I didn't mean alcoholics. I meant drinkers. Alcoholic is just if you have a problem.
Consumers of libations. We'll go with that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not who you know, it's who knows you that counts, and how you build those. Everyone counts, everyone matters. As you expand your network, become that local connector, adopt clients in the other side. People you pay consistently, you refer. Who do you send business to? Who do you send recommendations to? If you take that and say, I'm going to put that lady out of business in my local community, I'm going to expand that where I want them to call me for anything and everything related to that piece of property. You know you've been successful when that finally happens and they call you and they say something so off topic of, hey, just out of curiosity, my kid's turning 16. Where can I go buy a great car? Who do you know? That's where you've made that transition and you're no longer fixated or in the box. One of the most successful real estate agents I know and I've ever worked with is an amazing guy. His name's Brad Reeser. Cool gentleman. Has been in the business for 30 plus years, averages $1 million in GCI, and most of his business is by referral. And one day on a call, I said, what has been like the key success or secret that anybody could apply? He said, people call me for everything. He said, I have relationships with people. They know I know people. They know I'm a trusted resource, and the people that I work with, I would trust. So they call me for anything and everything. They call me for, hey, you got basketball tickets, you know someone for Friday night's game. Hey, where can I go buy this? Hey, do you know what's a great local restaurant? What is this, including everything related to the home. He said, my favorite part is when, somebody of the opposite gender will call me and say, who do you know who would be a great doctor for body parts I don't have? That's how you know you're the guy or the gal in the relationship in the community when you're recommending doctors and physicians for body parts you don't know. That's the win. Anybody can do this and be that local person. Well, what's that process? Well, we tend to go out there and we generate leads. We do marketing. We do networking. The internet is just a swamp of, and it's a sea of inquiry, Facebook, Gmail, Google. And we were attracting all these relationships, new relationships with complete strangers. So they come in as an inquiry and then we turn them into a suspect. Suspect is I've got their data, but I have not connected with them yet. We haven't had a conversation. Then we make that contact. Then they move in, they become either a hot lead, a watch lead, a nurture lead. Eventually, if we're successful, when we succeed, they become a client. And then we make the gravest mistake possible. We start calling them what?
Forever client.
That's what we should call them. What's the more common term?
Past client.
Right. And one of my good friends, Chris Stewart, said, have you ever noticed that the only two businesses that call someone a past client are the real estate agent and the funeral home director?
Say the funeral home.
That's the only time. How do we turn them into forever clients or clients and eventually raving fans, VIP, MVP members? It requires grit and determination. I threw this section in because you've heard a lot of, I think so many of you have built grit these last 6 months, this last year. Here's the struggle. You've built grit against your will. You haven't been thinking about building it. You've just been thinking about how quickly we can get this over with. And you know what I mean. You've been writing 16 offers on a buyer and they're still not under contract. That's resilience. Resilience is, sure, I know you're not going to win. And I will absolutely take you to this house, Mr. or Mrs. FHA buyer needing closing costs, getting a grant. Because I love you and I service you. And I'm building my grit and my resilience muscle. Now, more important than ever is what does it take to be gritty and resilient? It takes some mental toughness. Well, what is mental toughness for you? It might be picking up the phone and having a call. It might be building your own version of Angie's List. It might be implementing and actually putting this simple practice. See, complexity is the enemy of execution. Liz took this complex idea, simplified it dramatically, and now can be applied to anybody's business. It could be going going 1 month without missing a workout, looking at your Strava, your Peloton, your Fitbit, and say, hey, I hit one every day. It could be delivering work ahead of schedule. It might be calling a friend. It might be calling 10, 20 people in your database. Whatever it is, be clear about what you're going after and don't stop until you get it. Number 2, build grit with small wins. Small wins. 0 points for winning means you're always losing. We have these big extravagant, hey, I want to do 100 transactions. I want to do 1,000 transactions. I want to win the Super Bowl. There's only one team that wins the Super Bowl. What's the small measurable win that every single team in the NFL has to judge themselves by? It's called progress, not perfection. We think about grit and how we respond to extreme situations. What about just everyday circumstances? Mental toughness is like a muscle. It needs to be worked out. It needs to be developed. And if you're intentional, when you're intentional about developing it, everything gets easier. Build strong habits and stop depending upon motivation. Motivation is like a bottle rocket. It's cool. They're fun. You light them. They spark. They go zip, and it goes away. Long haul, be more like an entire fireworks show that never ends. Be like the Disney of fireworks with inspiration, courage, talent, intelligence. Grit comes down to simply your habits of what you do and the small wins you're supposed to be doing on a consistent basis. It's these relationships that are key and continuing them going. It's the ability to stick to a schedule. At times, and you may feel like this, you may have felt like this for the last year, you may have felt like this since day one of getting your real estate license and getting into the business, is what happens if I feel like I'm giving up. I've been in real estate since 2003 and coaching professionally since 2009, 10. I started coaching Bold, a national program, in 2009, and in 2011 took on one-to-one clients. That's roughly where we met, Liz. You and I connected.
I didn't realize you were new.
I've been on the road for 2 years. They just knew you were going to be a problem. Give it to that guy.
Right?
She was impressed.
Well, I'll tell you, in that process, though, I have yet to encounter a conversation with an entrepreneur as widely successful as they become. And Liz and I have even had this conversation. It's like, what? You know what? I'm just going to sell it all. I'm going to shut it all down and walk away and get it, one of those nice drinks with the umbrella and go to Tahiti. Everyone at any given time has moments where they want to give up. The only way you can fail in real estate and being an entrepreneur is actually by quitting. Think about your mind as like a suggestion engine. It's always making suggestions. Consider every thought you have is nothing more than a suggestion. Sometimes you're going to say, you know what, you should quit. You should give up. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't make that phone call. It's just a suggestion. And it may suggest that you give up and take the easier path. It's the job of the brain to find the simplest path and least resistance to make things easier. Just know the discomfort is temporary. It's a temporary situation. Picking up that phone, the first one is the hardest one to make. That first connection, you can use text. You can make things easier. Relative to your time in a normal day or week, it's just something you do habitually over time. Think about this. 300 years ago, if you didn't kill your own food, build your own house, you would die. And today, we are whining and forgetting about not having my iPhone charger. That's how gritty and resilient we've been. We're not making spears, bow and arrows, going through the woods, getting bit by snakes. No. Oh no. My internet service is slow today. Slow is like lightning speed. Only the older people will recognize this. When you go on and you got online, it was it was a thing called dial-up. You could download a song in 36 hours. It was revolutionary. It was the most amazing thing ever. And we complain of the internet. Well, why isn't it working? Like banging the mouse more and harder is going to do something for us. The key is when you keep going, you're never going to regret good work once it's done. I know there's uncomfortable times. I've talked to real estate agents this last week. It's been like Groundhog Day. All right, tell me what your thoughts are about the Fed's raising interest rates and your consumers and what's going on. The interesting good part is, and this is from Andy Andrews' book, The Noticer, 40% of what you worry about, do you know it will never even happen? 30% is actually already happened to you. Say that again?
I thought it was like 90% of what you worry about will never happen.
Well, actually, let's go through the numbers.
Oh, okay.
40% will never happen. 30% that you worry about has actually already occurred. See, some people that had a really excruciating time challenge, they've been through the last ship, they're still telling stories of, we lost everything in 2008, or we lost everything in the Great Recession. Yes, it already happened to you.
And you didn't die.
Twice, and you made it. So now we're at 70%. 12% are fears about needless imaging. You know, come on, we do this. Oh, there's a spot on my arm. Yep. Should I get that removed? Is that something serious? Do I have a tumor? 10% involves petty little things of what other people think of us. That's just where the social media world lives. And yet 8%, about 8% of what we do, what we're concerned about, what we're fear, what we have anxiety of is actually possible and legitimate. And yet we have control over it by what we do, who we connect, what we say, and we use our entire energy worrying about all the needless little other things. Our goal is to be gritty and continue to take people in the general public and move them into a target audience. Eventually move them to part of our network. Then they become relationships. Then they become advocates. I call them raving fans because that's short for fanatic. We call them what?
I call them MVPs.
Exactly. It's just taking people that we don't know, turning them into people that we do know, and ultimately turning them into MVPs. See, Amazon has a great way of doing this. Amazon is unapologetic about who they connect and how many times they connect you. How many of you get emails from Amazon a day? All right, great. So now we've identified the shopaholics in the world. Glad to know you. I'm a member. I'm here. My name is Drew. I'm a frequent user of Amazon. This is how frequent I am. 1,348. I spent an evening looking through my emails. In a year's time, in the previous 12 months, Amazon has blasted my email account to the point that they've sent me 1,348 different emails.
Oh.
Don't judge me. That does not mean I shop there a lot.
I was gonna say, what are you buying?
Well, the email suggestions.
Yeah.
What?
That wine thing I sent you the other day.
What can't you buy on Amazon? I find it fascinating today. People like, where'd you get that? Where do you get anything these days? The Hemizuzul Watsi God thing. Yes. That's how many times they email you, because they believe and they know what business they're in. They are in the customer obsession business. We see our customers as guests to a party. We are the hosts. It's our job every day to make every important aspect of the customer experience a little bit better. In their philosophy, every single day is day one. So somebody said it earlier, I get guilty, or I feel guilty, or I feel embarrassed, or I feel there's an issue because I haven't talked to this person in months or in years. Well, that sounds like you're keeping track of that. If every day was your first day, go back to the first time you generated a lead, you had a referral, your first buyer, your first seller, your first opportunity, your first connection, the first person you added to your database. How excited were you? What did you do with the first lead? What was your energy on day one of your professional career? What happens if you stop acting like it's day one? Well, then you get to day two.
Okay, I think this one is a very important question. What does day two look like? What does day two look like? I know the answer to this. Day two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. And that is why it is always day one. Thank you, guys.
So it's always scrolling there. It's always day one. It's always day one when you perk your spirit and you have the relationship and you show up as it were the first day, the first time you met them, the same level of energy you had on your day one. So here's what we're going to cover. In this course, we're going to cover what your customers want. You're going to cover how do we turn the idea from past clients into that forever client. Finding out what the consumer wants and then actually delivering secrets to the customer, calling you over and over again with every one of their needs. The science of strategic gifting, creating your own MVP program. Ways to increase your confidence, clarify your message, book yourself solid, how to create more peaks, fewer valleys, and turn any sale into a lifelong customer of loyalty, as well as gain clarity on what you stand for, craft new ways to deliver it to a whole new customer source. This is 14 weeks long, an hour-long session. It's 14 hours of ongoing content week to week. Live Q&As, myself, Liz is going to be involved. Bonus, you're going to get to gamify your experience and actually track and measure each week how you do with a point system. Debbie DeGroat, the president of Forward Coaching, her complete real estate script book, plus a special session with Debbie DeGroat and our marketing guru, amazing guy named Pete Mitchell, author, on how to market yourself and how to market your database with great message and how to reinvent those messages. Plus, you're going to have access to me anytime you need. Email me, or I'm going to give you my cell phone number and you can text me or call me, because for anyone that knows me knows, like Amazon, I don't respond to emails. Bonus number 5, 45 days of additional access to the recording. So if you find yourself getting behind at the end of the course, you can always go back. You can sign up. Do we have the, I'll put the link on there on the chat. Sign up today, one-time payment, $597 or $199 a month. And here's more. There's more.
Oh, wait.
As being part of this group and following Liz, following the journey, joining, being part of today, anyone that's part of the Perk Your Sphere group is going to get a 10% discount. Just
Ooh,
the perk itself.
nice.
I just threw the link down in the chat too.
Great.
And also, one of the things I get asked for all the time over the last 8 years is my spreadsheets. And I will give those out if they sign up for the 14-week course. And when I say I mean Brittany, like I don't even know how to touch this.
I'm like, those are like gold.
I know.
Goes out to anybody.
I know, but if they're going to be committed to the program and do it, then I think they deserve it.
And now is the time. And the reason I keep saying that is because regardless of what happens economically, housing, market, real estate, it really doesn't matter. The one thing that will consistently protect you from innovation, technology, is the relationship you have with your database. The relationship you have with your database will protect you from everything. It's like having a castle and a moat that, with 20-foot high walls and 200 feet deep moat. It protects you from the things that are happening. Believe it or not, there are travel agents that never were disrupted. Why? Because they knew enough people that valued the service that they brought to the table, and travel agents made it through the Expedia, the Travelocity, and the craze today. Matter of fact, if you look and you pay close attention, there are a lot of travel agents that are starting to make a comeback. Why? Because we are so inundated with data that I just want to pick up the phone and say, you know what, look, here are my dates. Here's where I want to go. Here's what I want to spend. Figure it out. Because they provide such a high level of service, they not only weather the storm, they're actually benefiting and gaining market share as a result. You can do the very same thing when you perk your sphere. You get referred and you grow. So Liz.
Yes.
What's next for Perk Your Sphere?
I feel like we got to write an updated version because that was written in 2016. And at the time, there's like a little tiny blurb about Winner's Circle, which is the top 20%, because it was starting to evolve. And so I feel like we need to go into more depth and stuff. So that is on my radar to expand, like write a 2.0 version.
How cool would that be? So questions, thoughts, ahas, love that idea. And now we got a new thing I'm gonna write down. All
I
right.
was gonna say, Liz Johnson, why did you say that out loud in front
We've
of
been
her?
talking about it.
I know.
I'm giving myself accountability.
Now we gotta do it.
Now we got to do
All right, you heard it here, folks. It's happening.
it.
So ahas, questions, comments, conversations. Let's open up the forum, unmute yourself, jump in, have a conversation, talk with us, what you learned, what you're walking away from and from this our time together today.
Not
Almost
everybody
like-
at once.
On. Sorry, this is totally working from home day. So this is my year. Like, I have been living and breathing and eating this, and I love your book, and I'm really committed, and I'm super motivated. It's the right timing for me. My question is, after the 14, as we go through the 14 weeks, so my fear is always, I sign up for everything. I do my very best to do everything, but you walk away from some of these programs and these classes and you're like, shit, now I've got to really do this. And I haven't been doing it. Throughout this 14 weeks, are we going to establish that habit? Are we going to be doing it in real time? Are we going to be held accountable? Because I need more of that, because the knowledge is here. It's the commitment and the effort to do it that I have to, and I'm doing a lot of it, but I need to tweak some stuff, you know?
Right. I assumed we were doing it all together in real time.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the question is, who will you get to partner with you? Who will you tell? Will you commit to showing up every week? So accountability is one of those things. It's, hey, I'm going to be answerable for doing what I said I was going to do. And I've done that. I think we've all done that at times. You sign up, you show up, and if you miss, what I notice about programs, especially as lengthy, 14 weeks, that's a decent amount of time, 14 hours. What I notice is so often if you miss a session, you feel compelled to go back and make up the last session before moving on to the next session. This is not a television show that you're going to miss. We don't have a cliffhanger in session 5 that if you miss it, you can't pick up and watch session 6. So should you miss something, make the commitment of, I will be on every single class. And if I miss something, regardless of whether I've watched it, I'm going to be on the next one. If you need more than that, accountability is being answerable. Often accountability is confused with punishment. Hey, I need a consequence. If you need that, reach out. I will put my phone number here and my email address. And we'll talk about, if you want to elevate of what would it take for you personally to follow through in each and every week.
And
What
my-
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would encourage everybody to download the book on Kindle or get a copy off Amazon. They're $10, and read it so that as we're going through the 14 weeks, you're not going, huh? What does that mean? Why are they not? So it's like 41 pages. It's almost a pamphlet, really. It's straight and to the point. I always tell everybody to read it twice, but get going on that now. So, and even you can start some of the process, like identifying who in your database would be an MVP or VIP or whatever you want to title your thing. Because there's the regular database, and then there's the people that are my fanatics, my raving fans. So like, these are things you can do between now and June 28th to get ready.
I was just going to chime in and say a lot of the questions that Liz gets, which get filtered to me, are how do I implement? And that's something like I really want to share. Like, these are your first 5 steps, and this is how you implement. Because it's not rocket science, but you do have to step-by-step chunk it down. Otherwise, it can be a lot. I saw a question about Florida rules and gifts.
Florida's tricky.
Yeah,
every state is a little tricky on that. I mean, in the state of Oklahoma, until a year ago, in the state of Oklahoma, for example, you couldn't give a bottle of water to a buyer without it be considered inducement of some way, shape, or form. So you just got to know your state rules. And yet, each and everything that we talk about, even beyond the MVP program, the perk, it's even just shifting how you think about the relationship itself. So everyone can benefit from some portion over the next 14 weeks, I promise you.
Right. And just on that note, like all of these things that we do in the Perk Your Sphere program, I title it for tax reasons and everything else under marketing and not client gifts. Because it is marketing. It's a marketing event I'm doing. Yeah.
Other questions? What are other frequently asked questions or thoughts, ahas today? I can play the theme from Jeopardy.
Bueller.
All right, let's
Okay,
hear it. Go ahead.
hi. So something that I kind of struggle with myself, and I'm assuming I'm not the only one, is that I can sometimes feel I'm kind of an introvert, and I can sometimes get like overwhelmed and become like shut down and be like antisocial, and that can carry through my business. And I know it's holding me back. And I don't want to let anything stand in my way of success. So I'm just wondering if there's anything in particular you would recommend to move past it.
Great question, Liz.
So I've been to Bold a million times, not just 8, but the biggest takeaway from that, and it applies in everywhere in life, and it applies to this, is your programming affects your thoughts, affects your feelings, affects your actions, affects your results, which then affects your programming, which affects in that vicious circle that doesn't have to be vicious. So once you pick up the phone and tell people about the program you're going to do, and they're like, oh my God, it's so great to hear from you, Jennifer. We were just thinking about you. Your program, your feelings, everything starts to change. And it compounds. So the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's kind of like working out. The first few workouts, you're like, oh, why am I doing this? And then somebody's like, damn girl, look at your arms. Like you got some definition. You're like, yeah, I do. And then you can't stop working out enough because you got that reinforcement, which affected your programming. So it's going to feel a little icky at first. It's going to be uncomfortable, but like Drew has taught me over the years, we're only growing when we're uncomfortable. And that goes for kids, like with growing pains in their legs. It goes for plants, whatever. If you're not stretching and growing, or if you're not uncomfortable, then those things aren't happening. So if you can just power through the first part of it, the programming will change, and then you'll love it and you'll seek it out.
Awesome. Thank you.
And, Ben suggests there's a book by Susan Cain called Quiet. It's the power of introverts in a world that can't stop talking. You can be introverted, but it starts with one relationship. Chunk it down to the point of, if there was only one person, and we talk about this exact question, and Brittany knows this, is if I deleted your entire database, I wiped your phone clean, I deleted your CRM, and you were able to maintain and keep one relationship, who would it be? Who would be the person that gives you the best chances of rebuilding or building an existing network? Start there. Start small, and even the quietest introvert can become just massively powerful. Mike.
Yes. So this is for Perk My Sphere. My team helped me send out the email. We mailed the letter. Now it's my time to make some calls. I only got 7 people join so far. It seems still little. I already feel like we failed, but should we keep going? Is 7 is a good number to start with and do the program?
So do you only have like, how many past clients do you have?
I have
forever clients. Look at me.
We invited about 170 people.
And so the other 163 said no, thank you.
No, I haven't heard back from them. I'm supposed to call them. I'm calling, and that's another wall
Yep,
came up.
you got to make the calls, and
Yeah.
then there'll be confusion. Like I remember making my calls when I first started, and they're like, "What does it cost to join?" Or what do I have to do? And I'm like, you don't have to do anything. This is just me thanking you for all your business and referrals. So I'm not really saying like, if you give me referrals, you'll get these things, but it's kind of implied. And we'll go into more detail about the psychology of that, but just make sure that you're explaining this to them, that there's no obligation on their part other, than maybe to think of you if they know somebody who wants to buy or sell a house or anything like that. But if the giveaway that month or the event that month is something that they'd enjoy, if they answer up in time, they got a seat at the table kind of thing. So I would just keep making your calls. That's the most important part of the launch portion of the program. And, maybe tweak your messaging if people are saying no, thank you. Maybe they're not understanding.
They're not saying no, thank you. I haven't got any response from them.
Okay. And you sent out an email and a letter?
Yes.
Okay.
So
All right.
should we do another maybe text broadcast video or
Yep.
something?
Yes.
Yep.
What I've learned from running Liz's program is you have to over communicate. For our big events, we have like probably 20 different messages that go out in different forms, and it's phone calls, it's emails, it's postcards, it's texts. Every month they get 2 to 3 just notifications because people have so much coming in, they just zone out. I mean,
Got it. Okay.
yeah.
Well, if you look at commercials or like an event coming up, whether it's a real estate event or like a concert, how many commercials do you see? Or even in the one commercial, how many times do they say the name of the product?
Right.
Because there's so much noise going on all the time. Like I don't read all my emails. I check my mail when I get a thing from the post office saying they're not going to give me any more mail till I clean out my box.
When I yell at you and say I need a bill.
Right. Or when I get a collections call and I'm like, oh, I got a bill in the mail. So yeah.
So I'm not the only one they're
over-
thinking about, right? All day long?
No, they're not thinking about you all day long, Mike. I know it's crazy to think that, but that's the reality.
Yeah,
So
we actually
you have to
thank you,
over
guys.
communicate.
I really appreciate the help. Thank you.
And just something to keep in mind is, and we talked about this in one of the sessions, is there's actually, you can look up the science, you can Google this. It's called the rule of 7 plus or minus 2, or the rule of 5 plus or minus 2. And it's a science that was done on our short-term ability to remember and the way the mind actually thinks. And here's where it most commonly shows up. How many of you have ever been to the grocery store and you've got a list, you got 4 or 5 things on your mind, and when you grab one, all of a sudden, oh yeah, I also need cheese. What you've done is you've freed up space in your thinking, which has allowed a new thought process or a new item to show itself. So the rule of 5 plus or minus 2, I know it's a really weird name. It just says, depending upon the complexity and the magnitude of what we're thinking about, that the mind is only capable of retaining 5 things at any given time, plus or minus 2. So if there's small things, I got a grocery list of 7 items. I might need 10, and yet I'm not going to remember 10. If you're anything like me, you've driven home, you're like, how did I forget the mustard? I just bought hot dogs. Well, because my mind was occupied with those 5 things. So when we're sending out mailers and marketing and emails, or that period of time has passed and it's been a while since we've connected, just know they've got 5 or 6 things, 3 or 4 on their mind. They're not thinking about our MVP program until we bring it back up over and over again and we occupy that brain space. Make sense? So out of respect for everyone's time, Liz's time, Brittany's time, your time, that's our time today. And I look forward to connecting with you guys and seeing you on Perk Your Sphere again, as if you join referred and become part of our program for the next 14 weeks.
It's going to be
seeing so many of you soon.
All right. Bye, guys.